thanks to Brandy Vickery abdicating his role. I'm going to go around and call on each of you to kind of introduce yourselves as you appear on my screen. Before I do that, I need to advise you that members of the committee are hereby advised of their duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflict, and are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before this committee with respect to which there is a conflict of interest or appearance of conflict. Anybody have any conflicts that they know about? Haven't seen the agenda. Seeing none, I'll start with you, Jennifer.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Porter. I am a deputy counsel at the North Carolina State Bar. I primarily handle disciplinary investigations and litigation, but I'm honored to serve as the staff attorney for the LAMP committee. I am a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force, where I was a JAG, and I was stationed at Seymour Johnson while on active duty and at Pope while it was still an Air Force base in the reserves. One of my primary duties as staff counsel for the LAMP committee is to ensure we remain compliant with public records law. So just on that, since we have some new people, should you engage in any email communications concerning LAMP committee business, please ensure that I'm included so I can retain a record. And if you bring any materials to any of the meetings for discussion at the meetings, please ensure that I get a copy. Let me know if you have any questions as time goes by. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm next on my screen. So my name is Mike Ramos. I'm the chairman this year. I'm the counselor for District 15, which is Bladen, Brunswick, and Columbus counties. My legal work is concentrated on death penalty cases, both trial and post-conviction. See you next, Lee. Okay. You're on mute.
There I am. Thank you. I said I'm a little hard. My name is Lee Bachman. I represent Cumberland County, which is the 14th district. I do domestic law and have been living in Fayetteville now for 50 years. So I have a lot of knowledge about the military, but from the civilian side.
Thank you, Lee. James Payne.
My name is James Payne. I'm a Marine colonel, no longer serving on active duty because we never are ex-Marines. And God help us that we got Mike Ramos as our leader, but we'll just have to deal with it. And I do the same stuff Mike does. He and I have tried cases together on the same venue for over 25 years.
Frank Whitney.
Yes. So I'm a retired JAG, a career reservist. I worked for Gilbeck, and I'm a civilian judge now in Charlotte.
John Wilkerson.
I'm John Wilkerson. I'm town attorney for the town of Wilkesboro. I'm counselor for Wilkes, Ashe, Yadkin, and Allegheny counties.
Thank you, John.
Yes.
By your name on your screen says Marcia.
That's right. It's my wife's account, Mike. Thanks. My name is Bai Shields. I'm a retired Army JAG, a retired Special Deputy Attorney General. I am the webmaster for the LAMP committee. I've been associated with this committee roughly since 1985.
David Hayden.
Yeah, David Hayden, retired Army JAG, spent too many tours at Fort Bragg, so that's how I got connected to North Carolina. I work in private practice, a law firm called Smith Anderson, downtown Raleigh, doing government contracting. Also serve on the North Carolina Military Affairs Commission, so I have some insights from that perspective. Glad to be here. Been on the committee a long time, but not near as long as Bai or Marcia, whatever it is today.
Thank you, David. Brandy Vickery.
I'm Brandy Vickery. I'm the counselor for the 9th Prosecutorial District or 9th Bar District. That's Wayne, Lenoir, and Greene County. We have Seymour Johnson in our district. I'm in my last year on the Bar Council, and I believe that my entire time I've been on LAMP, probably more of a matter of geography than anything else. I'm a retired district attorney from down here, and have been in private practice with a firm in Goldsboro. I live in Mount Olive, the pickle capital of the world now. And see, I'm not prone to understatement like some of you. Judge Whitney didn't mention that his employment happens to be federal judge. But anyway, I think several of you colonels and generals who have not identified that status might be good for some of the newer members to be aware of exactly how highly placed you are in the world of the military. But thank you. It's good to still be here.
Thanks, Bernie. Bert Kemp.
Good afternoon. My name is Bert Kemp. I'm a Pitt County Public Defender. I am currently a TJAG certified state military judge for the National Guard, and I am the bar counselor for District 3 or 3A, whatever it is going to be today. It seems like it changes all the time, which is Pitt County, Greenville, North Carolina. Happy to be here.
Do you know Myron Hill?
Yes, sir. I know him extremely well.
Okay, well, tell him Mike Ramos asked about him, and tell him his name is Lips.
Yes, sir, I will.
Barbara?
Barbara Christie, and I'm president of the state bar this year. And I have not served in the military, but grew up with a father that was career Air Force, graduated from high school while he was stationed at Seymour Johnson. Just want to thank all of you for being on this committee, and thank you also for your service to your country. Thanks.
Thank you, Barbara. Brittany Wilson?
I'm a paralegal with the Office of Counsel, and I am Jennifer's paralegal.
Thank you. Scott Hart?
Scott Hart, I'm the bar counselor for Judicial District 4, which is Craven, Carteret, and Pamlico counties. I practice in New Bern. Cherry Point is just down the road from me. I am the proud son of a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, born overseas in a U.S. Army hospital and attended high school in West Germany. And my primary practice is litigation and mediation.
Vice Chairman Kirk Warner?
Well, I guess I'm vice chairman. That's one thing that is new. And I thank whoever suggested it, but I'm happy to serve. I'm a litigator at Smith Anderson firm here in Raleigh, retired Army JAG. And I do note, I'm also on the North Carolina Military Affairs Commission with Dave Hayden. And I know that Marcia Shields needs a shave.
Gil Beck.
Gil Beck. I'm the executive director for the committee. I've been on the committee and served with many of you for many years. I've also served in the JAG Corps, Army JAG Corps for many years with many people on this call, and it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Meredith Egan.
Hi, I am a legal assistance attorney at Fort Bragg, civilian attorney here.
Thank you. John Brooker? John Brooker.
That's me. I'm John Brooker. I am a retired Army judge advocate as well, and I am now the director of the Military and Veterans Law Clinic at UNC School of Law, and I'm originally from Durham.
Thank you. Kristen Coyne. Kristen Coyne.
Hi.
Am I saying that right?
Chris, yeah, just Chris Coyne, that's me. Yeah. I'm a retired Navy JAG, and I've been doing legal assistance pretty much my whole career. I am currently just started working as legal assistance at Pope Army Airfield, having just moved from Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Alaska, where I did legal assistance for the Army for 5 years. So I've actually done legal assistance in the Navy, Marine Corps, Army, and the Air Force so far. So happy to be here, and I hope I can add something to the committee.
Thank you. David Fox.
Hey, everybody. I'm David Fox. I'm the military liaison for the Attorney General's office here in North Carolina.
Thank you, Mark. Mark Sullivan.
Thank you. I'm a retired Army judge advocate, served in the Army Reserve for 34 years, practiced family law in Raleigh.
Thank you. Jacqueline? Millette.
Hey, my name is Jocelyn Mittenall-Millette. I am an associate at McGuire Woods, the Raleigh office, and I was asked to serve on this committee by my colleague, Colin Willoughby. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate and served for 10 years in the Air Force, first as an intelligence officer and then as a JAG. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Joe Johnson?
I am a public member, a retired professor from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Major gap in my life is I did not have military experience, and I am absolutely intimidated to be on this committee, but happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's Captain Neil Bouchard?
Hey, yeah, this is Captain Buchanan. I am
Buchanan. I'm sorry, I can't. It's only half of your name, last name there.
Well, that was a good guess, sir. I am active duty at Fort Bragg, Legal Assistance Office, actually just right down the hallway from Meredith Egan.
Thank you. And I've got a D Fox on the screen there.
Yeah, I signed in twice and my
Oh, okay,
computer
I'm sorry.
froze. That's just me.
All right, thanks. And just before we get started, I had a little bit of experience in the Army back in the early 70s, and I made it all the way up to E4. All right, Mike Archer ever show up, Jennifer? No? It'll be a real short meeting. I guess the next matter is approval of the minutes. Everybody had a chance to read those.
Mike, I'll move the approval of the minutes as submitted. This is
Okay,
Kirk.
second.
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead and vote. If you got that, I approve the motion.
Very cool.
Jennifer?
Okay, it's unanimous in favor of approval.
Next, we have the item number 3 is a CLE report. Since Mike's not here, it looks like it falls on you, John Brooker.
Well, it will be a short meeting. So there's just what we did for those of you newer to the committee and weren't around in 2019. We had an in-person CLE at UNC School of Law. On November 1st of 2019, we had a total of about 90 attendees at some point throughout, and I thought it was a success. And I think we were looking to do that again this past year, but of course we were hit by the pandemic. And UNC School of Law the building is still closed. It may open up at a very limited basis in a few weeks, but the bottom line is there is no capacity or ability for UNC to support a CLE in the same way we did last year. I anticipate we will be able to do a similar event next year if everyone is on board with that at around the same time, the October-November timeframe. One-day CLE, I'll work with Mike on that if that's what folks want to do. I offer that up because UNC has administrative support in a CLE department to run CLEs, and they're willing to do that and help us. So I throw that offer on the table. So bottom line, this spring and summer, there's no capacity through UNC to do it. But next fall, we can do a program much like we did in the fall of 19, if folks are interested. Over.
Thank you. I believe the next is a major command update from the staff judge advocates who have got on board here. Anybody?
This is Cap Buchanan. I'll jump in, reporting from Fort Bragg. Not a whole lot new, just business as usual. I guess I will just put on your radar in light of the Army and the Armed Services just coming into the news a little too often on sexual assault cases. We have expanded. This was in the 2020 NDAA. We've expanded a little bit the services that legal assistance is offering in DV cases. So we're spooling up. I guess we'll call it like SVC Light. We're now taking on some of the domestic violence cases. in conjunction with legal assistance, and then partnering with the SVCs for certain triggering scenarios where it's clear that this is an aggravated assault or something that's headed towards a court martial, in which case we'll do a handoff. So just so you guys are aware, the Army is tracking this as an issue, and we're doing what we can to kind of beef up our ability to address DV clients. And then it just came to my attention that we are looking at running a tax center for Gold Stars, hopefully by this upcoming tax season. That's all I have on. I think Ms. Egan might have more to say, but that's about all I have on my end. Over.
Thank you, Captain.
Hey, Mike, before we go on to Ms. Egan, Lorna's iPhone is Mike Archer, so he is on the call. He's got his hand up, I think, just to let us know that that's him. His video's gone in and out, but he is on the call.
Who's that?
Lorna's iPhone, if you see that as in your squares, that is Mike Archer.
Oh,
yeah, thanks, y'all. We're out here in, of course, southeastern North Carolina, where we do not have quite the same capabilities as you may in Raleigh. But Miss Welch, the officer in charge here at Camp Lejeune, is here with Mike Archer. So we are present. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
Okay.
All right. So, Mike, anything up on the CLE report? We just heard from John.
Well, not so much. I mean, COVID has pretty much killed off the CLE for now. It's not happening at UNC, and nothing's happening that I'm aware of anywhere else either, unfortunately.
Okay, how about major command updates? We've heard from Captain Buchanan. Anybody from the National Guard or Camp Lejeune got anything to add?
Yeah, this is Mike Archer at Camp Lejeune. At long last, we are finally getting a paralegal who will be able to do immigration matters beyond just military naturalization. His start date is when is it? February 15th.
Okay.
And Mike, Bert Kemp has a hand raised. I don't know if he has something to add.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bert.
No, that's fine. Mr. Chair, I have a question for Captain Buchanan. Captain, are you on there?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Have you had an opportunity to review the Fort Hood report? You were talking about, you were somewhat referring about the sexual assault, for lack of a better word, I mean, problem, perception. I mean, I guess everybody has a different point of view on that. Have you had a chance to look at that?
No, sir. I was able to catch some of the highlights. Unfortunately, I've not had a chance to sit down and read all the way through it.
Well, the committee members, I don't know the answer to this, but I don't know if the report is allowed to be shared outside the military. I just don't know at this point. But if it is, if we can find out that it can be, it's definitely an interesting read, a very sad read, but a very interesting read, and it really gives I don't know if you would call it a snapshot of every base. I hope every base wasn't like that, but it was definitely an eye opener. I think it came out mid-December. But Mr. Chair, I just bring that up as just maybe the good idea of Ferry landing on my shoulder.
Do we need to do anything with that? I mean, is the contents of it confidential, you're saying?
Well, see, I don't know if it can be released to the public or not. It may be out there in an open source. I'm just not sure. But if it is out there in an open source, I would urge everybody to take a few minutes and at least read the executive summary. It's extremely eye-opening. Thank you.
Why don't you find out about that for us?
It's on the internet.
Okay.
It's out there.
All right.
And Mike, this is Kirk. I've got one question of either Lejeune or Greg, legal assistance. Are you seeing any trends at all that either relate to COVID sheltering, travel stop from PCS, anything in the domestic arena or anything we need to be addressing, even from K through 12 issues, potentially in the legislature or by this group?
Well, we're not seeing things of that nature, not necessarily, but we are certainly eager to see the school registration bill that was proposed about a year ago. I think it got past one of the houses, and that's about as far as it went. That would be very helpful, but no new things that we're looking at.
Are you seeing a tick up on anything relating to stay in place and no travel?
If you could answer that.
Yeah, this is Ms. Welch. So as far as custody is concerned, our former, we have a new one now, it's Justice Newby. Anyway, Chief Justice Beasley had posted something about what our judges were supposed to consider as guidance as far as custody matters were concerned with COVID. So the stop movement is kind of covered under that, so that a lot of our clients are just instructed to follow that. So on the family law side, we've just been kind of trudging along just like any other organization.
Yeah, as a background, that issue has to do with having a court order saying you have to bring little Johnny to Virginia, but then having either military orders or governor's orders or both saying you can't go anywhere. So you're caught in a hard place there.
Interesting. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Mr. Chair, I have a collateral follow-up for those two.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious. Has there been any guidance put out by your respective commands as to whether or not the vaccination, once it becomes available, is going to be ordered and required? Because it's definitely been getting friction in the National Guard, and so I was just curious, and whether or not there's going to be any type of pushback from different individuals requiring legal assistance on that issue. Thank you. Over.
No official word on that so far. We have been advised that as long as the vaccine remains not approved by the FDA, it's not going to become mandatory. If it does get approved by the FDA, it may or may not become mandatory for
We have the option of in it, and most of our attorneys and enlisted have actually received it already. There's only been a handful who've held back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, webpage.
All right. Let me start off by thanking our esteemed Bar Council, Committee Council, for posting the written copy of my report for everyone ahead of time. I think that helps everybody get a chance to read ahead. Let me start with the responses to web inquiries. Those were down during this period of time. We only had 2 in accord with the procedure that the executive committee had approved before. Our bar council, our committee council responds to these with tailored responses. On the 23rd of October, we had a request from a retired military member to join the LAMP committee. Jennifer sent a response explaining how appointments to the committee are made. Jennifer, I'm not sure what happened to that in the end.
I don't recall having heard back anything.
Okay. And then on the 8th of November, we had a very interesting request for legal assistance. And it was a request, quote, seeking counsel / grand larceny / intellectual treason / trying to stop my advertising enterprise so homosexuals, prostitutes, sex offenders and pedophiles in a contract written by X in North Carolina, Y in Dallas, the FBI, and Z, an FBI retiree, can live my luxurious lifestyle existence, end of quote. The executive committee considered this and decided that the best response in this situation was no response. Those were the total number of web inquiries we had this time. We had an updated article, Silent Partner, Fixing the Frozen Benefit Award. This was authored by Mark Sullivan. Mark, did you want to provide any insight or summary on that update?
I just cleaned up the language a little bit. It looked like it was stretching too far or pushing to advocate a position. So I backed off of that and reworded it, but there's nothing substantive in it.
Mark, would it be helpful to the committee if you explained what your concern was or what the position you were afraid that it might be interpreted as advocating?
The issue involves the current way to divide military retired pay for most individuals, which is called the frozen benefit rule. The frozen benefit rule says that unlike all other divisions of pensions throughout the United States, when you divide a military pension for those still serving after December of 2016, what you divide is only the snapshot, the hypothetical retired pay of John Doe or Jane Doe as it exists on the date of divorce. What I was pointing out in my Silent Partner info letter was that Congress changed the benefit to be divided, but we're still stuck with what is called the marital fraction. The marital fraction is marital pension service for the numerator divided by total pension service for the denominator, which means that the denominator runs out until the end of time, or at least until John Doe or Jane Doe retire. And that's inconsistent. We should have a denominator that stops on the date of divorce if the benefit stops on the date of divorce. And so what I did is I reworded it to say, if you represent the former spouse, what you want to argue is fixing the denominator on the date of divorce. Certainly, if you're going to represent the service member, it is in his or her best interest to have the denominator run out.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. Does anyone have any questions for Mark at this opportune
shrinking the
time?
fraction. Yeah.
Any questions for Mark on that article or his comments? Okay, hearing none and moving on. We have on the homepage of our website a section that highlights the recent articles. So rather than depending on listening to these committee meetings to hear what has been published since the last committee meeting, if you want to check and see if you've missed something, you can go right to the homepage and look at the recent articles that are there, and that should clue you in to anything that has been published since our last meeting. If you go there now, there are 3 articles listed there. That includes a link to a recent State Bar Journal article by Mark Archer, which was entitled, quote, COVID and the Military Legal Assistance Office. Mike, this may be a good time for you to comment or summarize on the high points of that article.
The article deals with, as the title suggests, with how we were affected as an office, but also substantive legal issues. So it would address such things as, well, how do you deal with such a high volume of clients? Or how do you get a whole bunch of people ready to deploy to New York when you can't get more than 10 people in a room at the same time? So it dealt with those sorts of office management types of issues. There were a number of other issues. I alluded to custody before, and talked about how we had various contract issues come in with people actually having these contracts that were not fulfilled. We then, and there were actually a number of issues that were related to travel, particularly landlord-tenant issues, and it talked about the new Stop Movement amendment to the SCRA, and just as a practical guide on how to deal with a number of these things that showed up at our doorstep.
Mike, have you had any activity in any of the areas that you mentioned in the article recently that it might be helpful to share with the committee?
Well, we're always having landlord and tenant issues, regardless of COVID. But I would say not that would be particularly instructive at this point.
Okay, all right. Also on the home page, you have the upcoming events section. I want to thank Jennifer for keeping that posted up to date for us. Again, that's a place that you should feel comfortable going to check and see if you've missed anything coming up. Finally, the LAMP committee membership lists, all the sections of that have been updated. Jennifer Porter has been the point of the spear and kind of move us forward to get them up to date and accurate. As I always do, let me encourage you to look at your name. If it's supposed to be there and it isn't, send me an email. If your information is incorrect and needs to be updated, please just send me an email and we will make those corrections. Chairman Mike, that's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vi. And for those who are new to the committee, the website, the LAMP website is kind of like the top of the line, very well respected around the country. Really, we had a meeting last year with the president of the American Bar Association just about the LAMP committee and its website. So you need to take a look at it to get a chance. It's got a lot of good information on it. Let's see, we got new business. Publication subcommittee, Michelle Wiener Pike. Is she on board, Jennifer?
I haven't seen her. Michelle, are you on? I don't think so, but I think Mike Archer can give an update. He had sent an email with an update.
Okay.
Can give an update. You hearing me? I'm sorry. There's a subcommittee meeting immediately after the LAMP meeting. And the status, as far as I'm aware of, is that I've reached out to the UNC Law School winter pro bono program and had folks there take a look at 33 of the articles, the take ones and the co-counsel bulletins that are on the webpage to ensure that they were up to date. They did so and have forwarded them to me, and I have done my own chop on about 10 of them. And hopefully I'll be able to share the wealth with some of the other folks on the subcommittee.
And I think that's a plug for help also, particularly anyone who does family law. If they're willing to take an article or two and help out with that review process, that would be great. And if you're interested, you can just email me and I will send you the information to join us at 3:15 for the subcommittee's meeting. My email, which you should have, but it's jporter@ncbar.gov. Thanks.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you, Mark. Mike. We got this, the North Carolina Military Affairs Commission work, and this is yours, Kirk.
Yeah, Dave Aid's on too, so he's kind of hustling this legislation.
Okay.
So Dave can jump in too. It's probably important for the LAMP committee, particularly for legal assistance and for just in general, the military folks to know, one of the commission's goals are to make this the most military friendly state. And we're getting about 9,000 transitioning warriors every year. And we want to keep them in the state for a variety of reasons because of the workforce and just in general. And one of the things we're hearing and understand and fully appreciate are that one of the reasons they leave the state are because state income tax on pension, Army pension. So that's something we've been working on. Dave Hayden in particular, a lot of people have over the years, and it's just never gotten as much traction for a variety of reasons. But Dave, can you give us a kind of a quick and dirty as to what the game plan is here? And we actually have some momentum. We could use everyone's help in grassroots efforts getting this through the General Assembly, and the commission is kind of taking it on head on, and Dave's leading the pack.
Well, thank you for that lead in, Kirk, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a good COVID-friendly day and in your self-quarantine paradises that you operate in. We have military retirees sort of divided in two categories. We have all military retirees who came on active duty prior to, I want to say, August of 1984. Your military retired pay, you have a state exemption here in North Carolina. Everybody who came on active duty after that or about that time frame, when you retire, your state taxes collect based on your retired pay. A lot of people balked at that, but it took litigation to even create that exemption for all those folks who came on before 1984. There are two other major categories of people who are government employees, to either state retirees or federal retirees that were non-military, who have their retired pay taxed as well. There is a lot of support in the state legislature to grant an exemption for all military retirees. And every time they've legislation to grant that exemption, they've been shot down, mainly because of a fear of the state retirees, state employee retirees, and the federal non-military retirees filing lawsuits of discrimination or whatever basis that would interfere with that legislation going forward. This year, finally, we have Senator Jim Bergen, who's out of Harnett County, in the state Senate, will introduce legislation in the Senate to grant a package bill that will allow all three categories of retirees to get an exemption. They will start off first with the military retirees getting their exemptions once certain thresholds in revenue are reached. Obviously, last year, the state revenues were impacted by COVID, and it's going to continue until we start turning this economy around to a significant degree. But once we reach certain revenue thresholds, if this legislation passes, then all military retired pay would have a state tax exemption. And then as revenues continue to increase, then that exemption would then be extended to the other categories of state employee retirees or non-military federal retirees. In the state house, Representative John Zoka out of Hope Mills will be introducing companion legislation as well. So both houses expect this to be well supported, and we'll have hopefully enough momentum to get this passed this year. Now, once it's passed, it'll take a little bit of time till the revenue in the state gets high enough to support the initial exemption for military retirees. But there are a lot of folks, and I'm sure there's some on this call, who retired, who may have come on active duty after that time frame in 1984 that this would apply to. Kurt started off saying that we like to claim we're the most military-friendly state in North Carolina. You might be interested to know that there are 31 other states that have already granted their military retirees an exemption from state taxes. So I always, when I hear that we're the most military-friendly state, I say, well, not in the area of state taxation of retired pay. And if you want to encourage these 8,000 to 9,000 folks leaving service who are retired to stay in North Carolina, you want to deal with this, because this is not that hard. We call it low-hanging fruit, and it should have been passed a long time ago, and keep your fingers crossed it'll be passed this year. And now the ask that Kirk referred to. If you do any state legislative officials who either in the state house or state senate or veterans organizations or anybody else where this issue comes up, we could use everybody's advocacy in support of passing this legislation that's been long overdue. Subject to your questions, that's all I have.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Kurt.
I just wanted to remind everyone that this is kind of important to what's coming on, and frankly for the tax center and for those that are doing any of the work, it's in legal assistance. to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. I know we're quasi-government, can't be lobbying by the bar associations around, but this is more of an individual request of everyone because it makes sense. And we need to be aware of it on the basis and those in the legal assistance arena for both the veterans and the folks that are rotating out. That's all we got, Mike.
Thank you, Kirk. Next is the North Carolina Bar Association, CLE.
We had a question from Payne.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I don't usually pay him much attention.
I respect the heck out of Marines. Come on.
Well, Mike was an E4, so he doesn't give a damn about other people. Hey, David, we probably ought to talk about this offline, but let me ask this up to you up front. Do you have an idea of which senators or representatives need to be touched so that we could do that? We could talk to you about that offline.
Yeah, let's talk offline about that. You can use my email on that. That's probably the best way to deal with it. Again, I'm just giving you
right, but you do, correct?
I really don't have a good list. I'll just give it to you at this point. I think everything I've heard is almost everybody supports it unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mike, on the MCBA, MVL stuff, I know Charlotte's on, I know John is, Brooker. John presented there. This was a great session, I think. As you know, the bar associations in the past have combined with the LAMP committee for CLE. John's UNC crowd has kind of taken over a lot of that role and done a fantastic job. But this was the Military and Veterans Law section. CLE is focused more on veterans than on necessarily the active duty, but it affected everyone. It dealt with discharge issues and appeals and everything about disability and a whole variety of things. And we had a lot of people on this LAMP committee were instructors as well, and we thank them. And I think it was roundly successful and is a model, since it was all done by a webinar or Zoom or whatever platform it was on. And the instructors themselves were the only ones presenting in live at the Bar Association. It could be something that we need to consider for our own LAMP CLE if the COVID doesn't seem to allow us to do other means. Essentially put the instructors together and let everyone else post in. So John, anything else you want to add on that? I just think it was an exceptionally great program.
Right. If UNC's running the CLE, we don't even need the instructors to be present at the same place. The instructors can be remote. That was a North Carolina Bar Association requirement that we won't have at UNC. So if that's a discussion I think I'll have with Mike, Kirk, everyone involved in the CLE. Do we want to go back in person? Do we want to try remote? And I think the nature of the vaccine and all the things with the pandemic is going to inform that decision later on this spring or summer. Over.
That's what we have, Mike.
Thank you.
Another great effort by a lot of members on this committee.
Kurt, question for you and or John. Are the manuscripts or the materials from that CLE something we want to consider posting on our website?
Absolutely, if permitted. I need to get permission from the Bar Association. Yes.
Would you kind of look into that for us, Kurt, and then we'll work with Jennifer to make sure we're all square on that and get it done if we can.
We'll do it, Marcia.
Thank you.
That's good. Good point, Marcia.
WAP.
All right. The next last item is enforcement actions, and that's Mike Archer.
I am a member of the Consumer Finance I'm drawing a blank here. Why am I doing that? Military working group. The DOJ and the CFPB get together, at least remotely, every quarter and that advise us on a number of things, including what are the sorts of enforcement actions that are going on, particularly of those of import to military service members. And I won't go into detail, but just to give you a flavor of some of these things, the Department of Justice took 7 actions in the last quarter. 4 of them resulted in consent orders or judgments. The majority of them all had to do with people and organizations violating the SCRA by towing away and selling motor vehicles of service members without first getting a court order. There is a provision of the SCRA that says if you're enforcing a lien against a service member, you can't go sell their vehicle unless you have a court order. Well, these folks typically just grab up cars at the cyclic level rate and never bother to see if someone is a military service member or not. So violate it with a fair degree of frequency. The more instructive case, I think, though, has to do with a landlord-tenant issue, the United States versus Western Rim. In that case, the property manager did a number of things. First, they said, we're not going to let you terminate your lease based on a written verification, a letter from the CO, even though the statute specifically authorizes it, actually specifically requires that. They didn't want to terminate, they didn't want to call separation from the armed forces to be a PCS order. Again, the statute was specifically amended to make that very clear. And they had these upfront rent concessions. You get the first month's rent free, but then if someone terminated their lease in accordance with the SCRA, they were saying, well, you forfeit that. And of course, the SCRA specifically prohibits that as well. In large measure, they were relying on these SCRA waivers. Now, the SCRA says you can waive its protections, but you have to do it in a certain way. In particular, it has to be a large enough type, and it has to be in a document that is separate from the document in which you're waiving things. And they had it, I think, as addendum 74 or of a series of addenda to a lease, and you would sign them all together, and they were all, and so that didn't comply with the SCRA requirements. And all that resulted in $71,000 restitution to 45 wronged service members. The CFPB is alive and well. Angela Martin, I understand, is here and can tell us that's certainly the case. They took no less than 28 actions during the quarter, 20 of which went to judgment or consent order with over $50 million in restitution and penalties. Of those cases, the most interesting in some ways to me is the case versus Encore Capital Group, perhaps the largest debt buyer in the United States. Essentially, they would buy debts, literally billions of dollars of debts, from debt collectors who were themselves unable to collect on it. They got these packages of information that was incorrect in many ways, didn't have the right names of people. They didn't tell them whether there was a statute of limitations concern, a whole bunch of problems, which the debt collectors told the debt buyers ahead of time. Nonetheless, these packages were relied on to initiate lawsuits at an enormous rate. For example, one law firm filing 100,000 debt collection lawsuits, obviously without looking at the package whatsoever. So they had a judgment against them in 2005, requiring them to pay $34 million in restitution and a $10 million civil penalty. More recently, they decided, well, we're just going to do some more of the same sorts of things we did before, even though we have a consent decree saying don't do that. And we'll add some additional violations as well. So they were, a second action was taken by the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, and they had to pay an additional $15 million in civil penalties. So again, CFPB is alive and well, and you can make complaints to the CFPB or to the Department of Justice for SCRA actions online, and I encourage you and legal assistance attorneys to do so. That's all I have from that angle.
Thank you, Mike. That's the last item on the agenda. I believe we're just about out of time.
We are.
Do I need a motion to adjourn, or we can just leave?
You can just declare that we are adjourned.
Meeting adjourned. See y'all in
Okay.
April.
All right, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know what I might do is